It is 10:06 a.m. and before I go over the trade with SYXX, I want to go over the other ones first. GEGI, I had no interest in trading it because of how ugly it was the last time I traded it. CMGR looked nice. I wanted to consider it for a morning panic bounce play, but I didn't really want to take it because it was only up one day, even though it was up massively that one day. It did ultimately offer something when it kind of had like a panic bottom here at 65 and it had like a baby higher low and then it got as high as 77, but this was a lot better when it broke this level right here and then it had that volume and it wiped out a bunch of sellers ideally and it made a move from the 66s to now 77, and this thing can very well continue the uptrend and get past VWAP and be something super profitable. So I'm glad this thing offered a setup. The price action was not that bad. I just didn't want to trade it again because it was only up one day, and I've seen these where it's up massively one day and then the next day it just sells off slowly but surely. Even though the pattern looks nice and all, it just keeps breaking the day low. But this one is actually turning around, which is pretty good. TXTM, I was interested in this one for a morning panic bounce play, but it traded all ugly, so I never gave it any money. But in theory, it did do one. It dropped from the 88 sub penny level to 70, and it tested 70 a few times. Maybe with more experience, I can get better at something like this and be able to trade it, even if it looks all ugly. I do like how, at first I didn't, but I like how it kind of dropped to 70, then it makes a quick run to 77, which is VWAP, and then it comes back. I've seen that happen a few times, and every time I see it, it seems like it eventually does get to VWAP and break it later. But again, this one trades really ugly. I don't mind missing it too much, but I'm glad I'm seeing something that I could maybe take and use in the future. And I did trade SYXX. This is a very degenerate day trader pattern. This is called a symmetrical triangle. And you can see the highs here are getting lower and then the lows are getting higher, although it's not perfect because at some point you could have had it like this and you can see how it broke the bottom part and it had a downtrend, but it did try to come back later and it didn't look so bad anymore, so I had the trend line right there and then it broke the top part of it and it also broke this important 3 cent level. I was long because it did break this trend line, and let me get rid of this one right here. I was in 2,000 shares at 297 at 10 o'clock, so that was right here. 10 o'clock, 297. I thought worst case scenario was going to downtrend, is going to break this level, give or take this 265 level, and if it starts to really panic, I'll be out at 2 pennies, which might be a little too wide of a risk level, but that's the way I traded it. And this thing is up on a gap up. It could try to maybe run a few more days, and ideally that could allow this to be something to consider for a morning panic bounce play. I did sell half of my position at 303. That was at 1003 when it was showing that it broke past 3, and I sold on the slight uptrend right here at 1003. I sold right here at 303, and then I sold the other half at 1005, and that was at 307 right here. I got out at 307, which was actually pretty good because it kind of went back under 3 and the trend line. But, maybe in theory this thing can continue to consolidate above VWAP and just be like a baby high or low off of this level right here. And maybe it can try to uptrend longer. Otherwise, that's all I have in terms of this trade. I'm having an issue. I don't know what to do right now, but like, for example, I'm in this setup. And it works, right? This thing worked, although maybe not too much. I mean, it did get to 32 from 30, so that's pretty close to 10%. I'm in here at 10 o'clock. It does do what I want. It breaks 3, right? It does continue to follow this symmetrical triangle pattern. But then, how do you sell when, for example, you're using a trend line? If it lets me draw one. You're using a trend line, right? But how do you sell in pieces if, for example, you're using this trend line, but it's at the bottom and then it's really far off of the trend line? So you can see right here it was at 316, and you're going to cut the trade when it breaks the trend line, but if you do that, you might even lose money, but it's like way off of the trend line at some point. So I'm not sure exactly how to do that. I could be a nerd and have another trend line like for the top part of it and try to maybe follow it a little bit, right? So that when it gets exaggerative and way above the, other trend line that's kind of playing off the highs of the candles, I could sell, but I don't know. That's just something I'm going to have to continue to analyze and maybe try to get better at. But I'm pretty happy with the trade I had there, and there was opportunity with TXTM. There definitely was, even if it traded ugly. And CMGR did a nice one here. And I don't mind missing this one because it was only up one day, but it's nice to see the pattern work, and maybe in the future I might consider a similar setup on another stock. Alright, it is 11:14 a.m. and oh, okay, we just had a print at 70, so I guess I would have sold the other half at 70 ultimately, but I had two more trades, one with SYXX, and that was okay, yeah, the second trade of SYXX, and then I had one right here with TXTM. As for SYXX, why did I consider trading it? It was way back at 1039 when I bought 2,500 shares at 303. 1039 being right here at 303. I was in it right here. And I noticed that something I've been struggling with is that I've been having like these really exaggerative risk levels. Like I think, oh, maybe worst case I'm out at 2 cents, when maybe it might be more realistic that worst case scenario I'm out at the day low, which would be 22, which would again still be very far. Maybe I still need to raise it a bit higher, but I noticed that's been an issue that I've been having, and I need to get better with that so that I have the right amount of shares, even though it says on the charts on my my spreadsheets that, oh yeah, I traded according to a $20 risk level. Maybe my risk level is too far, so I'm not actually trading the right amount of size. But anyway, why did I get in this? Because this was a resistance level, 3 cents, and it looks like it was trying to uptrend and break past 3 cents, and then ideally it can make a move near the highs here at 32, and then best case scenario gets near the day high, and then even on top of that, it gets well above the day high. And again, I was in, but it just didn't work out. I was in it again at 1039, 303, right here. 303 is when I got in. And I did sell in pieces. I just really hated it because the bid was never able to catch up with the ask, which was uptrending, because there would be these big red prints, just somebody dumping shares, maybe a bag holder, a short seller, a market maker, I don't know, just constantly dumping their shares at the bid, and it wasn't letting the bid uptrend. The moment the bid will go a bit higher off of this 3 cent level, more shares will be dumped at it. So that was pretty frustrating to look at in the go through. And I did sell eventually one piece at 311, which wasn't my half, it was like a little less than half. 311, I sold 1,000 shares at 1044, which was right here. I sold some at 311, and this was a pretty good fill, but yeah, I mean, and then eventually over 2 million shares were dumped, and I was like, all right, is the big seller out of the way? Is the guy that keeps dumping the share out of this, is it going to finally uptrend now that the big selling is out of the way? Well, it hasn't, as you can see, and it did break under 3 cents. And when it did that, that's when I got out of the other piece, because I figured, eventually, if the setup starts working, I'm going to have to move my risk level up. At the beginning, I was going to cut it if it was going to break this level for sure, this 271 level. But as it broke past 3, now it's a completely different risk level because it's done something different since my original entry. And then I did get out the other piece of the position right here, 1,500 shares at 298, which was a slight loss from my original entry price at 1046. Right here, 1046, I got out at 298, which sucked, because it just felt like this thing could have really have done it and continue to make a move, and maybe he'll try to do it later, or maybe he'll just absolutely fail because there's just a lot of sellers. And again, I don't know why they're selling, if they're back holders, short sellers, promoters, or market makers. I have no clue, but it didn't work out, and I tried it, and at least I tried it, and I will be interested in it if it breaks 32 later, but I think we're running out of time for it. It would have to really catch up. And that was a trade with that. And again, I think I did that one the best that I could have. I did trade TXTM, and this was like a morning panic bounce play, lower low. So here was the morning panic bounce play. I didn't trade this one again. I didn't like the way it was trading, and then it downtrended, and then it broke this level right here, the 70 level. Right here, just briefly, it broke under it, and I thought, okay, this could be it. You know, maybe it was trying to be like a higher low off of here, but then it failed. It breaks 70, wipes out all the sellers and, you know, people who are shaky. And now, with all those sellers and people out of the way, it can try to uptrend. And I did draw two trend lines, one on the bottom side and one on the top side. So I thought, you know, I'll be in the setup. And if it gets like way above the top part of the trend line, then maybe I should sell a piece. And if it gets below it, I'll cut the trade. Absolutely. And if it's in the middle, I'll just continue to hold on. I was long 10,000 shares at 69, which is according to a $20 risk level if you ask me, because if it were to have broken the day low, I was thinking worst case scenario, it breaks the day low and then it, you know, might panic and get to 63. And then now that it broke all of the support, this could be like a really big panic because that would make a lot of people red, if you ask me. So that was the thing I had in mind. I don't mind the amount of shares that I traded here. And yeah, that was a pretty good entry. 10,000 shares at 69 at 1103 right here. Right here I was in at 1103. And I did sell in two pieces. I sold 5,000 shares while it was uptrending at 72 at 1108. Right here I sold some at 72. I think it was actually 71 and a half, but it rounded up to 72, and I think that was a pretty good sell while it was uptrending. And then I thought, you know, worst case scenario, if it breaks the day low and everything, at least I'm not cutting my entire position for a loss. And then this one tricked me, okay? I got out the other half 1111 at 71. I did not mean to do that. Right here, 71. Why did I get out? Well, my idea was that I was trading off of this bottom trend line to cut the rest of the position. And I thought, okay, well, if we get to 70 at the bid and then we have a print go through at 70, that's going to mean it's going to be under the trend line and I'm going to cut the trade right then and there. But what happened was is that even though 70, it dropped to the point where 70 came back to the bid, a red print went through, but it was actually 71, even though I think 71 was still at the ask. So that threw me off because as soon as I saw that red print flash and I knew 70 was at the bid, I went ahead and I placed the order to sell the other half, and I got out at 71 when actually, you know, even though 70 was at the bid, it wasn't actually going through. It wasn't actually, you know, taking trades at that price point. So that kind of got me out of it, but it did fail ultimately, as you can see here, and I would have had to have cut the other half for, I guess, worst case scenario, break even, but this one kind of worked out. I mean, it would have been better if this one got to VWAP. This was ultimately a scratch. SYXX, I did barely make 5 pennies from this other trade right here. This was a scratch. And then I had that one setup that did kind of work out, but I mean, it didn't really work that well. And I did pretty well with that one, if you ask me. So yeah, just 3 trades so far, and 2 of them are pretty much scratches, although I guess you can say TXTM wasn't too bad, but it would have been nice if it were to have gotten to VWAP, which is something it could do. That's it for right now. I don't know if I'll trade anything else, but I'll continue to be looking and working on other stuff in the meantime at this point. It is 10:54 p.m. and I'm here to call it off. Overall, I'm going to be up on the day $3.90, and that was essentially trading a few scratches. None of them really worked out, at least the ones I did take, but I do want to go over TXTM, and I'm not extremely sure if I'm going to be able to get this to zoom in properly, but this one wasn't so bad because it did work out ultimately. I again was long at 108, and that was right here. This was the uptrend, and it didn't really work out. This was the morning panic bounce play, lower low off of this original morning panic, and it had one more dip, but it did do the thing I wanted it to do, and it got to VWAP at 75. it could have been another attempt. We're here at 69, and it did get to 75. So that would have been something really nice to be a part of. And I did my best. I just wasn't a part of the one that worked out. But I think the one that frustrates me more is freaking SYXX, because this finally did the freaking thing I wanted it to do. And I guess for this one, I'll probably just stick to this chart and get rid of extended hours. It finally freaking did the thing I wanted. And I wasn't there when it happened. I was fulfilling orders in the garage, and this would have been one of the few times where if I opened my trading programs on my work laptop while I was fulfilling orders, I could have been a part of this. So yeah, it's just a reminder that when I'm fulfilling orders, I should at least every single time have the stocks up, the charts up, so I could be a part of something like this and be profitable. Again, that trade with SYXX was pretty much going for that breakout past 3, but we had all of that selling price action and it just went through a drought, but it eventually did it. And this was super nice. And it wasn't so hard because it doesn't seem like there was any big volume besides right here, at least red volume. And yeah, it went from the threes, right? And it went as high as to 44. So I mean, that's like a 33% move towards the upside at least. So at least I was on the right track with this. I wish I was a part of this, but it was later in the day, and TXTM I did the best with what I had, and it just didn't, necessarily work out when I got it, but I was still able to make money from it. That's pretty much it for today. A few scratches, but I think a few good lessons, and I was definitely on the right track. Yeah, just a good step in the right direction.